Hi, it's Cynthia Heron from Insider Normal, and today I'm going to be sharing with you about Beautiful Feet books, Early American History for 7th through 9th graders. We love using literature-based programs in our homeschool. For kids with outside-the-box needs, literature-based programs really let us learn while also accommodating their learning disabilities. When we do read alouds and have discussions, then we don't need kids to be able to write or read for themselves because most of what they're learning, they're taking in auditory through their ears. So it's been a really good fit for our family. And so I'm really excited to share with the new updates that came in 2021 for the Beautiful Feet's Early American program. So a little bit about Beautiful Feet. They are a Charlotte Mason and Christian programming, which means they do a lot of map work, lots of literature, journaling, handicrafts, a lot of different things within their history. And it's usually a really gentle program that lets you read together and then encourages you to select other activities that really fit your family. We've used their programs for the 4th through 6th graders before, and have also taken a look at some of their even younger programs, and they've been around so long that my husband, who was homeschooled K-12, used some of the books, and my mother-in-law actually passed me some of her Beautiful Feet materials. So we really love the program and love the company, and I'm really excited to share with you the books that are part of their new Early American program for middle schoolers, for 7th through 9th graders. So one thing that I love about their new selections is there's no spine book. So what's a spine book? A spine book is often it's a book in a program like a history or science program that it's something that you would read throughout the entire year, and that other materials and activities come alongside and support that book and the materials and that content. One thing I noticed with this program is there is no spine book. So that means there's no book that has to give an overarching Early American program. Instead, the books are divided into 5 units. And so there's a stack of books for each unit as part of our Early American history. And this Early American covers from the Indigenous and first encounters between the Native people and the Europeans that came exploring, all the way through before the Civil War started, setting up for the Civil War. But the Civil War is not included in this program. So with all of that, I want to get started and talk to you about all these amazing books that are included. So the first unit, the Indigenous Peoples and First Encounter unit, includes 2 books. So there's the Peacemaker, which is a story about the unification of the 5 Iroquois nations. And it's actually written by a First Nations author named Joseph Bruchac. And he's actually written a couple of the books that I'm going to show you today. And second of all, the other one is The World Made New. This is the National Geographic. It is a hardback. One thing I love, even though we're talking about 7th through 9th graders, is there's a ton of pictures and maps and timelines in this book. So for your visual learners, there's some great things. It covers not only what the world looked like at this time and who the explorers were that came to America, but then it also covers the impact and long-term effects of that exploration on the world. So both for bringing in the disease, introducing new crops and animals and food, the trade, going both directions are included in this book. So while it's a not so thick picture book, multi-graphics, it's also really heavy, and I'm really excited that that kind of learning is happening for our older kids, because it's still really a valid way for them to learn, and exciting for them to have lots of pictures too. The second unit that's included is the early colonial period. So there's 3 books in this. The first one is called Almost Home, and this is about the Mayflower journey, and it's told through the eyes of Mary Chiton, one of the young girls who was on board. She was one of the actual people on board, and the stories and moments that are included are actually all real from the different events that have been recorded. And So it's really fun to read about her story from a child's point of view, the same age that our kids will be when they're reading the curriculum. The next one is Pocahontas. And this one is also written by Joseph Bruchac, who wrote Peacemaker. What is unique about this story of Pocahontas is that it has two stories, the stories told from both perspectives of John Smith and his European perspective, as well as Pocahontas and her First Nations perspective. So each chapter, it goes back and forth to give the same events from each cultural perspective. So it's not your typical Pocahontas biography, and I'm really excited about that. And I know my kids are too, to hear a new perspective and hear both perspectives in the same story. The third book that's part of the early colonial period is The World of Captain John Smith by Genevieve Foster. 3 books by her are included in the series. And what's really unique in this one, and it is a rather thick book, and it's a very large one, is that it's a book of history, but it's talking about what the world looked like at the time of John Smith and all of the things that were going on during his lifetime that he intersected with then the making of what those historic events were. So his life overlapped with the life of Shakespeare, Galileo, Rembrandt, Queen Elizabeth I, and more. And so you get to hear how those events were happening in real time, along with his life and upbringing, and then the things that he did as part of history too. So all of that intertwining. So this is the closest we come to a spine book, but we're going to read 3 different ones of these throughout the year. The late colonial period is our next time period, and we have 3 more books to include. The first one is we have Poor Richard by James Daugherty, and this is a biography on Benjamin Franklin from his childhood all the way to his adult life, and all the things that he did to help from his perspective in the fight for independence while not actually being a soldier, as a scientist, inventor, and author. This one I'm super excited about. If you've seen the movie Amazing Grace, then you've heard a little bit about Equiano. And this is his biography, but his autobiography, but it's adapted for younger readers. So it's his perspective of being stolen, being an African prince who was kidnapped and stolen and sold into slavery, how he bought his freedom, and then how he advocated as an abolitionist in Europe for the freedom of the Black people. So if you've seen the movie Amazing Grace, he's one of the characters there, and they reference his biography as one of the tools that was used for that. And here it is available for our students to read. And then, like I mentioned with The World of John Smith, part of the late colonial period, we have George Washington's World, also by Genevieve Foster. And this one, again, it's talking about the life and times of George Washington and the things that intersected with during his lifetime, including the music of Bach, steam engines being invented, Catherine of Russia, the first flight by hot air balloon, and the artist Goya are all things that intersected with George Washington's time in life and in history. And we can explore those things and how they influenced him as being contemporaries of George Washington in the world. For the Revolutionary War, which is a very big event in American history, I'm really excited. There's only 2 books here chosen, and they're from really unique perspectives. So the first one is Black History, Black Heroes of the American Revolution, specifically written to tell the stories of the various Black heroes during the war. There were at least 5,000 Black soldiers that fought during the Revolutionary War, but we don't know a lot of their stories because they were illiterate and weren't able to record them themselves, like many of the white soldiers were, because they didn't have the education. So more of those stories are being told, and I'm really excited that they're included in Beautiful Feet's program. The other book that's included is Sophia's War by Avi. And this book is a fictional story of a 12-year-old girl that connects 2 true stories and moments throughout the war. And that is the treatment of the American prisoners by the British and the relationship between the British Major John Andre and General Benedict Arnold of the American Army And she begins to uncover some treachery and treason and decides to make sure that it doesn't happen so that America has the advantage. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one myself alongside my kids. After the war, the last part of history that is studied is the young United States. And we have 5 more books that are included here. Several more biographies. So we have Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman, which is a biography of the preacher, abolitionist, and activist. And she advocated for both the rights of Blacks and women during an unusual time. She was quite a woman, standing over 6 foot tall. And while she was illiterate, she did have the Bible memorized, so she was quite the orator. The next book is Carry On, Mr. Bowditch. And this is a biography, again, of a man who would later write the Sailor's Bible, helping many sailors navigate and explore the waters of the world. And this is his fascinating biography to find out what were the events that led him to write that world and the experiences that he had, giving him the experience needed to write such an authoritative book. Another biography is another one by James Daugherty. This is of Courage Undaunted, which is the story of Lewis and Clark and their journey to document and map the American West. Previously, when we did the early American for 4 through 6, this book was included there. But my younger kids did have trouble with it, so I'm really excited that it's been moved up to the older kids, which is a much better place for the reading level of it. This book, as well as Poor Richard, does have wonderful 3-color illustrations as well. So we also have Mary and the Trail of Tears, which is a fictional account of one family and their forced relocation from the area we now call Georgia to Oklahoma as part of the Cherokee Nation, and it is written by a Cherokee author as well. So there are some illustrations, and it's a very moving story, part of the Girls Survive series. Fever 1793 is about the yellow fever epidemic in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. And this girl's account and her experiences of trying to deal with it and survive during this time when the fever was raging. Looking it up and learning more about it myself, over 5,000 people died in 3 months. And the only reason that it started to slow down was because we had a cold front that killed the mosquitoes that carried the yellow fever. So very exciting account there. And our final book is, again, by Genevieve Foster, and it's the Abraham Lincoln's World. So again, this is the making of history that was in the making during the lifetime of Abraham Lincoln and what was happening around the world. So this includes things like Victor Hugo writing plays, Darwin as a young boy hunting for toads that would later influence the evolution theories. Beethoven was composing symphonies, and England defeated China to rule Hong Kong, and Texas was becoming its own independent location as well. So those are just some of the historic, what is now historical, that was contemporary events and headlines during Abraham Lincoln's life. So all of these books make up the early American program from Beautiful Feet for 4th through 6th grade. Each unit will give you the reading assignments for each day, as well as suggest other projects and enrichment activities that you can do, give you other reading books if you want to dive into a specific part of that time period. And the really great thing is this is not an everyday program. The lessons are written, so you're only doing history twice a week. So it's a really nice, manageable program. You're going to read some great books together, books that I'm getting really excited to read with my kids, and then find some ways to get your hands dirty and explore them in hands-on ways and dig into other resources online. There's also writing prompts and deeper learning activities suggested for each unit. So while there are lesson plans, there's also a lot of space for you to make it your own and do what fits your family, no matter what your out-of-the-box needs are. So I'm really excited about this program, and I hope it's something that is beneficial for your family, and you'll look into it when you study your early American history. Make sure you check out Beautiful Feet books. Thanks. Join me for more videos at InsideOurNormal.com. Thanks.